Great. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to a new webinar in the series. If it's your first time joining our webinar series, then welcome. If you've joined the last webinar in the series and are coming back, welcome back. This is the second webinar in a series of 3 that Climate Group are running in partnership with Renewabl, and I'm delighted to be co-hosting today with JP, their CEO and co-founder. To introduce myself, I'm Rachel Swiatek. I'm the Senior Manager at Climate Group for the 24/7 Carbon Free Coalition, which is an initiative that will support large global corporates to revolutionise electricity procurement and reduce carbon emissions. Next, please. And we launched the pilot phase of that 24/7 coalition at the end of September at Climate Week New York, and we are now finalising that campaign design and technical criteria ahead of a wider campaign rollout in 2025. We're doing this in collaboration with our 6 corporate founding partners: Google, AirTrunk, Vodafone UK, AstraZeneca, Iron Mountain Data Centres, and Shree Cement. And we've actually got Ben from AstraZeneca with us today to share their journey so far as well. So look forward to hearing more about that in a moment. But we're also collaborating with our technical partners to develop technical criteria. So thank you particularly to Killian, Simone and Katie, who are also all with us today, that have been part of the technical task force so far. But you will get a proper introduction in just a moment. So just a reminder that you can stay up to date with all of the campaign's activities with our 24/7 newsletter, which we'll pop a link to in the chat if you want to do that. But just as with the last webinar, a spot of housekeeping, because there will be a Q&A at the end of the session. So please do use that question box to ask questions as we go. We will either answer them directly on there or at the end in the live Q&A, and try our best to get through as many as possible. We'll also be recording this session, and a link will be shared afterwards as well. But with all that out of the way, I will now hand over to my co-host, JP.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. First of all, huge thank you to Rachel, Louise, Alison, and the Climate Group team for co-hosting this webinar series with us, and all of you tuning in today. I'm JP, serial entrepreneur with 20 years experience in the commodities trading and climate tech industries, and now CEO and co-founder at Renewabl. Let's start by briefly introducing Renewabl. Renewabl is an advanced climate tech platform connecting buyers and sellers of renewable energy and guarantees of origin, enabling them to source the most impactful, traceable, local, transparent, and cost-efficient renewable energy on an hourly basis. Our procurement and analysis tool leads the way in simplifying hourly matching, helps you stay aligned with this evolving industry standard, and ensures that you fully remain compliant as hourly matching becomes the new norm. On the last webinar, we talked about the general concept of hourly matching and had amazing insights from James Dietrich, CTO at Electricity Maps, a great outlook from a buyer's perspective, and experience from Chris Pennington, Director Energy and Sustainability at Iron Mountain Data Centres, and a great presentation from our own Gabriel Umana, Head of Commercial at Renewabl, who explained in great detail the benefits of hourly matching from a procurement perspective. Today, we're talking about action. We have a very exciting webinar focused on transitioning to 24/7 carbon-free electricity. And we have some great companies and great speakers today. We have Katie Soroye, VP Granular Procurement Solutions at LevelTen Energy. We have Ben Norbury, Global Climate Lead at AstraZeneca. Killian Daly, Executive Director at EnergyTag. And Simone Accornero, Chief Product Officer at Flexidao. So without further ado, let's kick things off with Killian. Killian, over to you.
Thank you very much for having me on today, both to the team at Climate Group and Renewabl, of course. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Let me know if you cannot see. Otherwise, I'm just gonna start talking. So what I'm going to do is just run through a quick overview, lay of the land on regulation, what's kind of happening in this space, also the various actors already doing hourly matching and moving towards 24/7 TFE, and then I'll talk about the EnergyTag standard a bit. So just first of all, what is EnergyTag? We're a nonprofit based in London that works on 3 pillars of activities. We develop voluntary standards that enable granular certificates, so they're key tracking instrument needed to move towards 24/7. We work on enabling the granular clean electricity markets that ultimately will, provide the products that we need to get to 24/7. And also we work on policy initiatives and global standards around the world. So that's like the European Union's green hydrogen rules or the similar rules in the United States. We're also involved in the technical working group on the greenhouse gas protocol scope 2 update, which kind of sets the rules of the game, I guess, for a lot of these clean electricity markets. And so it's very, very important, obviously, that aspect, pillar 3, evolves correctly. Why all of this matters? So just 3 key things. Time matters. So this on the left shows the hourly availability of clean energy and fossil energy in Europe. And obviously we see that changes a lot during the year. And so we need approaches that recognize that. You can't just do annual matching and forget that during the day it's much more easy to source clean energy when there's a lot of sun than at nighttime when there's not, for example. And that's what we see in these graphics here. We need to move towards hourly accounting in order to integrate variable renewable energy that changes in availability by the hour. Deliverability also matters. Today, we assume places like the United States or the whole of the EU are perfectly interconnected. And that simply is just not true. We need to do a better job, like power markets do, not perfect, but better, at dividing up these large regions to reflect a reasonable degree of deliverability. So that when you say, I consumed this green energy, that claim can really be backed up. And there's no kind of legitimacy or integrity concerns with that. Also, we need mechanisms that enable new clean generation while also recognizing the importance of maintaining existing clean generation on the grid. We cannot just have total reliance on existing TFE, because then obviously by definition, we're not driving anything new. We're not decarbonizing the grid. So we need to find fair allocations of existing assets and things like this to make sure that the framework is robust. And I think the current draft of the technical specifications from the Climate Group do a good job at addressing these. The evidence on this topic is quite clear. There's a new paper out today from Denmark Technical University. There's reams of research from the world's leading academic institutions showing this is the way to go. 24/7 approaches are the most robust for grid decarbonization, new technologies and clean portfolios, and even things like better price hedging of electricity over time. And legislators, NGOs, corporates, there's many kind of joint letters, both in regulatory filings and also from the corporate sector as well on things like clean hydrogen rules, calling for moves to 24/7, saying let's transition away from today's lower granularity accounting methodologies and do something more credible and something more robust. So there's plenty of support for this topic as well. From politicians, NGOs, and the corporate sector also. And policies are going granular. If we look at things like the renewable hydrogen definitions in Europe, similarly in the United States, look to be going that way, requiring hourly accounting to say that your hydrogen is clean. That's in law now in many places around the world. And that's only the beginning of a trend in general, where we see electricity accounting for many different products go more granular and become more hourly, obviously in line with the evidence and the need for effective policies and subsidies. In my home country, in Ireland, for example, the government there is setting up a framework for data centers, which already consume a lot of electricity there, making sure they're also declaring their emissions on a more granular basis. And it's happening around the world. There's tens of terawatt hours of hourly matching already happening from loads of different organizations all over the world. Check out our website. There's about 30 case studies now on our website showing that this is absolutely possible. It's something that we need to be moving towards, and many already are. That's a very, very important signal, I think. Just a quick few words on the EnergyTag standard itself, on granular certificates, because I think that's important for the feasibility elements, and I know some of the speakers after me are going to dive a bit deeper into how we get this done. And I hope that we bring a framework for making that possible in various configurations and circumstances. So we have two standard documents. So we have our granular certificate scheme standard. That's all about how do I issue these timestamped RECs or EACs, and then how do I go about matching them, using that GC basically to match to consumer load, so that I can make claims around, hourly matching, maybe deliverability, or other criteria as well. So there's two standards with two separate functions. The standard section on our website is where you can find the full documents, but there's just a few points I want to touch on here. Basically, at a high level, the standard defines the different roles that you see in a typical hourly matching or GC scheme. And this is, obviously the typical roles you'll see in any transition to 24/7 CFE. There's typical issuance roles and typical matching roles. You all can look through this yourselves over a cup of coffee maybe some morning, but this is the basic framework. I won't go through every single one here, but this gives you a basic idea of how we track from the point of generation to the point of consumption and claims. Getting access to GCs can be done in different ways. So the most kind of obvious one, and the one that I think we would like to see happen everywhere, is to see the existing issuing bodies or registries of RECs or monthly certificates issue granular certificates. That is the kind of, I suppose, path of least resistance in terms of getting these instruments out there as quickly as possible. That's happening quite quickly in many parts of the world. For example, in the US, many of the registries are offering this already in some form, and I think basically all of them are working on that. But it's not possible everywhere today. And so in cases where it's not, we have a thing called a configuration 2 or 3 that basically helps people use hourly data combined with monthly certificates in order to get these GCs so they can make hourly matching claims. I'm going to just touch a little bit more on what we call the configuration 3. This is really where you take a monthly certificate and hourly data. You cancel the monthly certificate and then profile that monthly certificate into granular certificates so you can make hourly based claims. Really, really importantly, this can be done right now today. You don't need to wait for any of your legacy registry providers to provide GCs, provided you have hourly data, which is very, very common for most consumers and generators, and monthly certificates. You can already make robust, solid hourly matching claims right now today. And I think that's a very, very important point. Also, another key aspect we cover is storage. We need to integrate storage into PPAs, into other clean electricity deals and tariffs. And we have a methodology outlining how to do that with standalone storage, covering losses, making sure you're allocating your clean energy in and out of the battery correctly. I won't dwell on it, but that's another key aspect of our standard. Finally, obviously, we can facilitate an accreditation as well. So you just reach out to us if you feel, yeah, we've read the standard, we think this is something we would like to comply with and communicate to the world that we're EnergyTag compliant. If so, reach out to me and we can go through the process again. There's more on our website there. So that is an overview of why we think this is important, and also some elements of how, using our framework, we think this can be done at scale today. I will finish up there and look forward to taking any questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe it's my turn right now. So yeah, I'm Simone. I'm the CPO, Chief Product Officer, and co-founder of Flexidao, as I was introduced before. Thanks a lot to the climate group for inviting us, and also Renewabl to make space for us. So if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks a lot. Flexidao is a software company, and we provide the clean energy intelligence platform to clean energy buyers. Essentially, what this is an end-to-end tracking, analytics, and risk management solution to help companies manage their clean energy portfolio in terms of supply contracts and certificates. So there's everything that happens after the signature of a PPA, green tariff, and bundle contract, from invoice validation and rectification, performance monitoring, reconciliations, allocation of certificates to sites, business units, internal and external reporting, and also procuring certificates to fill the gaps in order to hit the targets by the end of the year. We serve any clean energy buyer, not just focused on 24/7. We currently work in more than 30 countries, have roughly a bit more than 50 terawatt-hour of annual volume under management through our platform. We work with very large logos and clean energy buyers, as you see, that follow very different strategies, some sophisticated ones and some, let's say, the typical I100 or today's Scope 2 practices. We can go to the next slide. So considering today's session, this is a deep dive on 24/7 and a very clear message that nobody should take 24/7 as something that is niche, that is not happening, and it's extremely hard to do. We think it's very important to distinguish between achieving 100% 24/7 versus counting and measuring your procurement today wearing 24/7 lenses. So this can be done today with any type of contract, with just a few recommendations that what we'll discuss today. Today, we at Flexidao perform 24/7 matching for these 4 clients. We have 2 more that we cannot disclose yet, but we hope to do very soon. We do it across 18 countries all over the world, not only Europe and US, also Latin America and APAC. As of October, we tracked and hourly matched more than 20 terawatt-hour of clean energy to load. And they are part, as we were saying before, of 4 boards and steering committees or technical working groups that are currently drafting policy and technical criteria on this topic. So how do we actually make this happen? Yeah, thanks a lot for the segue. How do we make this happen, and what does it mean to do 24/7 accounting or granular accounting today? We broadly see, as Killian said, so this links very much to what Killian explained before, how this takes place today. Well, we see essentially 2 options that then we match to load. So here you see what kind of data sets we need to collect in order to perform 24/7 matching. The first case, which is today the most, let's say, the most common in our portfolio, is what Killian before called configuration 3. So it's whenever the existing issuing body is not issuing GCs, and therefore we need to transform canceled certificates into GCs. This we do by coupling together energy production and certificates. I will explain a bit more about that later. We, of course, also have the option, which we are currently doing in some parts of the US, especially PJM and Emirates and NAR, where we actually get the GCs. And so we can match the GCs to the consumption. So either the first option or the second, in both cases, then we take the consumption, we perform the matching, and we can then, going through all the verification steps that EnergyTag has defined, we are also getting accredited as both issuer and matching verification body. So we follow all the rules. We are audited by EnergyTag in order then to deliver a score to our clients. Since the first option is what we see that is the most available today in the market, and I will then explain how to turn different contracts into this option, I just want to explain a bit better what's happening here. So what we're doing essentially is that we're defining a time frame, which is usually 1 month. And we are taking canceled certificates from that month. We are layering production data on top, and we are creating a profile. This, of course, has some drawbacks because it does not create a tradable instrument, meaning that you cannot, it has to be based on EACs that are canceled. So you cannot trade or put on the secondary market the GCs that we create, but it is a way to already assess the hourly matching score of a certain purchase and bundle together a transaction of certificates with your consumption, with a company's consumption. This also gives us the flexibility that we don't have to buy the full outtake and the full production volume of a specific plant. Because imagine that during a month, that plant produced 1,000 megawatt hour, but you only received 300, as indicated here in the picture. Then essentially we do the profile and we can assign to the buyer only 30%, because 1,300 out of 1,000 means that you receive 30%. So you cannot pick and choose specific hours, so you cannot just buy only at night. You have to buy the whole curve. That's the second drawback, but this ensures that there's no double counting, ensures that you can do this kind of accounting today, and that any contract type works with this kind of approach. And of course, if you want to trade specific hours, then you will get the presentation from Katie after myself. So essentially, as a summary of all of these, meter data, either consumption and production, certificates, and GCs. With these three, we're good to go. And of course, hourly CO2 data, for which we rely on electricity maps. So if we then do a deep dive on meter data, today is Flexidao off the shelf. We cover more than 1,000 DSOs and utilities in Europe, which are more or less 14 countries, everything that is central, western, from south to north. We can get meter data directly from the meter through the DSOs. In North America, we have integrations with 40 out of the 50 major utilities. We cover all states with a strong focus on major industrial areas where our clients are. We're also rolling out in major economies in LATAM and APAC, where we have integrations either, again, with system operators or suppliers to collect consumption and production data. Of course, our data capabilities keep growing and they grow together with our clients. And next slide. I also want to share and invite you to scan the QR code to download a playbook that is focused on hourly electricity meter data, consumption and production. To my knowledge, is the most extensive analysis in terms of global footprint that was ever done that assesses availability. So does hourly meter data actually exist in terms of meters that can actually store the values, and how easy it is to access it. And we looked at API, authorization methods, etc., documentation, etc. All of this is ranked. So for all North America, Europe, a big chunk of Latin America, and some countries in APAC, you have a full analysis of how easy it is to get hourly consumption and production data. On top of that, we also provide a few recommendations on how to manage all of this data effectively. Then next, please. In terms of certificates, because I mentioned that it's very important to collect the certificates, any 24/7 claim today must be backed by a certificate, either monthly or hourly, otherwise it's not a valid claim. We can help buyers automate the management of their REX or GEOS account or IREX account, essentially all over the world. Europe, North America, Latin America, and Asia, across different standards, IREX, REGOS, GEOS, and REX, and we are now adding Tigers as we move towards APAC. And I also want to do a shout out in the next slide to the registries that today actually offer granular certificates under configuration 1. Next slide, please. So today, any buyer can go to these registries and request hourly certificates. And we know for a fact that this is possible because we're doing it. So these registries deliver granular certificates to our clients as of today. And there are more there are more registries that are implementing this in both in the US, but also in Europe. And we have some announcements coming soon on that front. So last slide, because also I think I'm a bit over time. I just want to summarize all of these, saying that any contract type can be turned into a 24/7 CFE compatible contract today. There are very few things that need to be taken into consideration. So first of all, again, contract type doesn't matter. A PPA, virtual PPA, green tariff, or unbundled contract can all be turned into 24/7 CFE. It's not about the instrument, it's about the product, and whether the product that you buy meets the requirements in terms of geographic location, additionality, etc. They are laid out in the technical criteria of the 24/7 coalition. How you buy those, not important. What you buy is important. So essentially, you need to ask your supplier or broker, and it's possible with brokers. We transacted more than 1 terawatt-hour of GCs already. So it is definitely possible. You need to ask the supplier or broker to provide hourly production meter data and certificates monthly from the same asset. It's only meter data is not enough. We've seen a lot of cases. You get the meter data, you get a nice matching score, and then you actually go and check the certificates, and they come from different assets. That does not work because that is double counting. It is definitely possible and should be done to combine 100% annual matching with a local hourly matching also. So select 1 or 2 plans that deliver to me meter data, give me the certificates from those assets, and then top it up to give me 100% at the end of the year with any asset you want, because that counts towards my RE100 or my 100% targets. Doesn't count towards my hourly matching combined. And remember that partial offtake is possible without any risk of double counting. You're not exposing yourself to any risk. It's good, and it helps to create a mix of assets that actually can deliver to you a good score. Following these, and we have much more detailed recommendation that we can provide, you are able to have a conversation with any supplier and broker to deliver to you a tariff that delivers not only 100% renewable, but also a matching score, both hourly and local. So with these, I think I'm done. Sorry if I went a bit over time, and happy to take questions afterwards.
Thanks, Simone. And I think this is a great transition because Killian helped ground us all in the standards that are helping to define granularity and granular certificates and bringing in this additional time and location-based information. Simone did a great job pointing out all of the different meter data challenges and opportunities, and a reminder to the 98 of us who have joined for this webinar this morning that this is possible. And I want to now double click into an area of what are some new opportunities and new markets that are emerging to further help make this a reality. So next slide. I'm Katie Soroye. I lead Granular Procurement Solutions at LevelTen. Some of you may know LevelTen because of the work that we've been doing around clean energy marketplaces, which we operate in 29 countries, including across Europe and North America. But what I want to talk with you about is how we've got something new that is coming together around a granular certificate marketplace that we're co-developing with ICE that is yet another tool coming to help make it easier and possible to achieve these next generation procurement goals around hourly matching. So next slide. So for those of you who have been thinking about what Simone was highlighting, we realize that, even when you continue to sign aggressive power purchase agreements for carbon-free energy, the challenge is that the profile is not necessarily matching 100% your demand. So if we look at like a solar PPA. So next slide, what we then hear is, okay, well, let's bring in, another source of generation. Let's bring in wind to sort of balance out that profile. And you see like, oh, we're continuing to make some progress. And yet we still have these gaps, even when we're doing this. And that's the challenge that we've heard from buyers and sellers over the years who've said, LevelTen, you have been tremendously helpful in making it easier and faster for us to sign long-term power purchase agreements. But now we've used those to achieve an annual target. But now when we want to try to get to this level of hourly matching, right now, In order to do that, we would have to drastically over procure, which would be very expensive and an inefficient way to address those gaps, which brings us to the opportunity. Next slide. What we've heard from some of our largest buyers is, we need something new to help fill these gaps in the portfolio. This is what we like to think of as the green block opportunity. How do we make sure we understand where and when that additional granular certificate supply is going to be needed? And next slide. This is really getting into the heart of what we are doing in our work with the granular certificate marketplace, which is creating a market for the granular certificates, building on that EnergyTag standard, so that buyers can have a way to more elegantly fill in those gaps and match their demand hour by hour. Next slide. The other really interesting opportunity is not just the green block opportunity, which is very, very important, of course, but it's also realizing that when we start going to this hourly accounting and understanding, we may also have opportunities where buyers, like many of you on this call, might have excess carbon-free energy and overproduction that they can bring into the market to sell. And what I think is really exciting to us is this is a whole new paradigm for how we think about carbon-free energy supply and demand and the roles that we can play in it. So on to the next slide, continuing to dig into the details. Some of you may have seen the announcement that we made last December around the Granular Certificate Trading Alliance. So this is an effort that was convened by LevelTen in partnership with the Intercontinental Exchange, ICE. And it's a collaboration between some of our biggest buyers and sellers, AES, Constellation, Google, and Microsoft. And we're looking to develop a first-of-a-kind trading and management platform for granular certificates. And it's an opportunity to make sure we are bringing to life both that green block and gray block opportunity for buyers and sellers. So moving on to the next slide, let's get into the specifics. So we're looking to do a US pilot that is going to be starting at the end of this year. And for those of you who may recall Simone's slide talking about the state of tracking systems and registries, we're going to be starting in one area first, one of the tracking systems that has capabilities today in the US for hourly certificates. And what will be happening is before an auction occurs on ICE, people will come onto the LevelTen granular certificate platform to talk about the hours that they are looking for. And then we will be anonymizing and aggregating that demand and publishing it out. And then on ICE, we will be running quarterly auctions for these granular certificates where sellers will come in and bring their supply, buyers will come in, and we will help to bring those two together. And then very importantly, after the fact, LevelTen will be playing a role helping to facilitate delivery and integration with the tracking systems and registries. But also, this is something really new and exciting in the market. And there's so many questions like, what are the different premiums that we will see for different hours of the day? Where do we have more demand than supply? And so one of the other roles that we are going to be playing is providing those market signals out into the world to highlight just the tremendous opportunity and demand to fill those areas that need to be filled for carbon-free energy. So we are also really excited about the market signals that are going to be generated as these auctions come to life. And while we are starting in one place, rest assured we have lots of excitement and interest in expanding this, to cover all of North America and Europe and beyond. So on the next slide, how will granular certificates be traded? So we will have two markets that we're going to start with. One will be a forward market, GCs that will be minted in the future. So if you think of where you've got those known green block holes in your portfolio, that might be a way for you to enter into a longer term-ish commitment to address those areas. And then we'll also have a spot market, or what some people might refer to as an ex-post market. So GCs that have already been minted. So if you think of that visual we showed previously of the gray block opportunity, that's where we've got some excess that people can bring into the market, and where people may have overproduction can help somebody else who may have underproduction. Next slide. So the forward market will trade in 4-hour blocks. That will be for taking together hour ending 1, hour ending 2, hour ending 3, hour ending 4, for example, into a single block and bundling that together. Whereas the spot market truly will go for just a single megawatt hour. Next slide. When we came together as an alliance, we identified 7 goals that are informing our approach to market development here. And as you'll see here, we went from having, I think, 5 organizations sign on when we announced the creation of this alliance last December to now 23 plus. And for those of you on the call who may be interested, we are continuing to look for more supporters. And would really encourage you to take a moment to read through these. And if these align with what your organization is looking for, would definitely encourage you to consider signing on. And one of the reasons for that is we really fundamentally believe that this is going to be a transition that requires entire industry-wide support in terms of the progression that's going forward. And really crucially, if you look at number 3, ensuring that we have environmental legitimacy in such trades. Building on all of the great work that happened in creating the first markets for EACs, RECs, and guarantees of origin, making sure that we're continuing that work as we go more granular. And then finally, last slide here. This is my specific request to folks on this call. If you are a buyer, please scan this QR code and take a moment to give us some of your feedback on how your organization is thinking about granular certificates in terms of your procurement strategy. And the reason why we're doing this is very much speaking to what Simone and also Killian talked about. There is significant work ahead to get all of our tracking systems and registries prepared for the shift to granularity. And we fundamentally believe, as most of you do, since you joined us for this webinar, that this is something that is possible and of interest. And we really want to highlight and show the level of interest and demand that is out there, pent up, waiting for granular certificates. So again, for the buyers on the call, thank you. Really appreciate your time. And again, we will be sharing this report, looking to have this come out in December, and very much just appreciate your time and thoughts on that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Katie. So I'm Ben Norbury, I'm the Global Climate Lead at AstraZeneca. So I'll give the corporate perspective on 24/7. And firstly, delighted to participate in this and as a founding partner of Climate Group's 24/7 initiative. AstraZeneca, at a glance, huge global biopharmaceutical company, $50 billion revenue, and big growth plans there. So if we move on from this slide. Global company with operations including R&D, commercialization and manufacturing across the globe, diverse workforce as well, but really about 3/4 of our energy use is across 3 hub areas, which is Sweden, the UK and the US. But we are dotted around the world, which, as you can imagine, we have different sourcing challenges in different places for renewable energy. And if we move forward. Our sustainability strategies is 3 pillars, and within environmental protection, we have Ambition Zero Carbon, which is our our leading strategy to achieve science-based reductions on the way to science-based net zero by 2045. So if we move on, I'll just detail very briefly our kind of overview of our targets, but then I'll dive into the specifics on 24/7 and how that plays a part in our strategy. So we have science-based reduction targets across scope 1, 2 and 3, very aggressive by 2026, 98% reduction in scope 1 and 2. And the levers we pull to really deliver on those is very much focused on energy. So we're a member of RE100 since 2016. We've also become a member of EV100 and EP100 in 2019 and 2020 respectively, because we recognise we really need to follow that hierarchy, particularly on the EP100, to reduce energy consumption in the first instance before we then substitute it with renewables. And then within the renewables, I'll talk through a bit of a hierarchy that we have as well. But we recognise as well the scope 3 footprint is vast majority of our footprint, and we have a lot of leading targets there that are all science-based as well. But we'll pass over those for now in the interest of the agenda. So if we move on to the next slide. So going into the energy strategy that we have, and this, really talking about that hierarchy that we wish to follow of design out inefficiency and reduce demand for more outputs is where the EP100 target that we have. And so since 2015, we've reduced total consumption by around 19% across our global portfolio. And during that time, our revenue has gone up. So actually, we have doubled our EP100 metric, which is dollars of revenue per gigawatt hour of energy consumption. So we've actually achieved that target 2 years early last year, which is great, because effectively it saves money as well as doing the right thing and reduces supply chain, production of energy emissions as well. So that's been a real win for the business as well. Let's look to the right-hand side. With then, the energy that we do use, we want to make sure that we are doing it to as high a quality as possible. And if we look at that chart, that's kind of a big brown base and very little green above it. In 2015, our energy use was dominated by fossil-based energy. We have ambitions by 2026 to deliver on our carbon reduction goals, not just to move to EACs, but to move to EACs with real impact. So that means where we can in those major markets, move into additional renewables to the grid, whether that's through power purchase agreements or for gas biomethane agreements. Where we can't do those, embedding the bundling of certificates together so we've got greater provenance of our energy, but there will still be some certificates needed, and we'll be seeking to absolutely minimize any brown energy that we use. So really what we'll look to do there is invert that pyramid. And what's great about 24/7, and Simone covered this as well, is around wherever you are in those green bars on the right hand side, you can source 24/7 certificates. Once those certificates are available in those markets, it's not about always having a 15-year PPA for 80% of your demand. This can be quite a liquid market that you can access quite quickly as well, to have an impact on the 24/7 element. And at the top there, on-site solar PV, believe it or not, that is maximizing what we can do on our sites currently. We make big investments in that, but really to get to that scale, we need to do the off-site renewables as well. If we move on to the next slide. So, why 24/7? AstraZeneca has got an ambition to lead on climate. The health implications of climate change are very real and are growing, and the evidence behind that is growing as well. And so we're really looking into how we achieve our science-based climate targets, not just if we can make those claims in the GHG accounting spreadsheet. And that's where we come along things like 24/7 as a way to actually have some impactful, scalable, real-world solutions and benefits as delivered through our strategy. It's also an opportunity to attract and retain talent, that we see great interest in climate from our employees, future employees, and also our customers and investors as well. And what maybe not on here, but also a really important thing is when we're looking at a 15-year PPA and things like that, the GHG accounting rules are going to change over time. And we see this as actually good risk management to start thinking about this when we're signing a long-term agreement. How resilient will these certificate purchases that are part of that agreement be over that period? We know the GHG protocol is going to change, it's going to update, it's going to get more granular, and expectations will increase. So how can we manage that risk through those long-term agreements now? And we see 24/7 considerations as critical to that. Our RE100 commitment really was that initial catalyst, and it's acted as a really robust baseline in which we developed all our internal standards, and I'll touch on what those are in a moment. In terms of our strategy, we've got a number of focus areas that go beyond just the % renewable metric. Like I say, it's about how as well as if we achieve our goals, and those are focused on additionality, geographic relevance, and temporal relevance, which is where the 24/7 comes in. We'll move on to the next slide. So I won't read through all of this because it's quite heavy. This is really just an example of kind of how we look to achieve our impactful procurement. So we have internal standards around this, and this is kind of a bit of an example of our scoring matrix that we use whenever we're sourcing a new contract in any of our markets, and it's differentiated by market. It's worth noting that some of these examples may not be applicable to every geography. And it is looking to be quite holistic as well across all sustainability impacts. But we do look at the partner of choice that we're working with, the technology, the environmental attribute certificate quality. So obviously that starts then granularity is now coming into there. If you want to score a high score in an RFP, you need to have good provenance and granularity within those certificates. The additionality of production, whether it's new to grid, whether it's on-site, off-site, and the relative distance that it is depending on what country you're in. That covers geographic relevance as well, and then finally temporal relevance. So if you're going to get a low score, if you can only produce same year production and consumption of certificates and energy, whereas actually if you want to achieve a high score in how we judge these opportunities, then the majority needs to be matched 24/7 from day one with a strategy to increase. So that's the, if you like, the ambition we're putting into discussions now. We're very nascent on this journey, and this is relatively new. We're having those conversations with internal teams in terms of procurement, corporate affairs, to understand what 24/7 is, as well as additionality, as well as carbon accounting and all the other elements here. And what maybe touch on now is the what. So what have we done so far? Like I say, we're quite nascent. We announced the PPA last year in Sweden, and we're working with Flexidao at the moment to do a bit of a pilot of, okay, what is our kind of incidentally matched renewable power here? How well matched are we? I really want to stress, because it can be quite intimidating to think of 100%. It really isn't about 100%. Certainly not today. That's in the long-term ambition. It's going to be, are we at 20% today, 40, 60%? And once we know that, and we've got our energy data, we'll need to be good to understand that as well. What can we do to manage it? Will it be targeted efficiency? Will it be on-site renewables? How can they contribute in the best way? How does storage get better utilised and the paybacks improve for that? And also, like I mentioned before, the approaches to how we top up the energy attribute certificates beyond the PPA, as well as actually a more liquid market here for matching. And actually that can be a way that we can boost our score in terms of CFE while still achieving a lot of additionality through the PPA that we're doing. And finally, we've got some more 24/7 readiness discussions going on in future PPAs. Can't really disclose anything about those at the moment, but we're looking forward to talking about those in the future. So that's it from me. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ben, and the rest of the speakers. Some amazing insights and actual case studies around the importance and impact of 24/7 hourly matching. Big shout out to RE100 for creating awareness to their 400 plus members and beyond. Okay, so we have some great questions from the audience. So let's kick things off with a question for Katie. What is driving quarterly intercontinental exchange auctions rather than, say, monthly or other timeframes?
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the questions that came up for us as an alliance is, when you start with a new market, how can you concentrate liquidity? And so the idea was with starting with a quarterly auction was a way of concentrating that liquidity at a single point of time and bringing that together. So that's how we're starting. We certainly expect that we will continue to evolve as we learn. If I can also just say, I saw another question that came in from the chat about the hourly blocks. As it relates to the forward market, we are bringing together, hour ending 1, hour ending 2, hour ending 3, hour ending 4 into a single block, but it's not any random assortment of hours. For example, each day, each 24-hour day is divided into 6 4-hour blocks, and it's just sort of a bundling of those hours, not creating a grab bag of any hours counting for that time. So thank you for that question. Hopefully that helps clarify.
Cheers, Katie, and thanks for all of your really great questions coming in. This next one is for Ben. It's how will AstraZeneca factor in grid mix of electricity into your 24/7 CFE approach?
Yeah, thanks. Good question. I think we take a market-based approach, and I guess what we're already doing is matching with annual match certificates at the moment. So we're already kind of making those scope 2 benefits in our reporting through the market-based mechanisms that, as long as they comply with our 100, we currently follow that route. But what we're really driving to do through the 24/7 is kind of acknowledge that has got us a long way, but it isn't maybe necessarily what's going to deliver pushing fossil fuels off the grids that we're in. So that's where we're moving to 24/7. So I say we're in an early step of a transition, but what we're already doing is we're 99% matched with the ACs on an annual basis, and we want to improve that granularity. So for like the grid mix carbon factor at the moment, we're not calculating that, but like I say, the pilot work we're doing with Flexidao for our Sweden PPA will also kind of look at those in terms of quantifying the true kind of hourly carbon emissions of any energy that we're not matching 24/7.
Brilliant, thanks, Ben. And just to add, sort of, I guess, from the 24/7 coalition perspective as well, that how grid mix is tackled will certainly be in the technical criteria that will be released in due course as well. But yeah, thanks, Ben. JP?
Awesome. Okay, so next question is open to all. How many buyers are there in reality? Are the numbers of, there are a growing numbers of solutions and providers, but how many buyers are there in reality is a really good question. So open to all. If no one wants to go first, I'll have to nominate someone.
Well, can I go in to plug again? If you haven't already, please do the survey for this reason. And JP, I think sort of stepping back, if you look at it from a macro standpoint, there's 167 organizations who've signed on to the UN Compact for 24/7, looking to make this a reality. We have organizations like AstraZeneca leading the way. Flexidao, I know you could probably speak to and already have to a lot of the customers you're looking at. I think one of the interesting pieces right now is it's chicken and the egg. On one hand, people are looking for more tools to help them achieve these goals. And so part of it, I think, is helping to continue to highlight to the market the amount of interest that there is. And for many of us on this call to continue to help create the solutions to make it possible for people to realize these ambitions.
Great.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Katie. We work with 7, so at least 7 are on active 20% supply contracts that I can bring evidence for. And they're not all part of the coalition, so I think there are at least a few more. And we should also not forget that there are suppliers like Good Energy, but also others in the UK that already offer 24/7 tariffs to the mid-market. So definitely it's not only Google, and it's many more than it's public. And I think that also relates to the fact that it takes a while for an organization to embrace this new narrative, going from 100% and having to explain why 70 is good also takes a while. And that's why I think there's this a bit misalignment. But there are definitely many more organizations that are thinking and looking into this than what is public.
Killian, over to you.
Yeah, no, fully aligned with some of the responses there. We, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of have a large list on our website of organizations actually testing this out and doing this. I think another very important point is that I think a lot more people are doing this without realizing that they're doing it, right? Like, so if you're in somewhere like India or really anywhere in the world, if you have, for example, a PPA agreement, you're probably settling that power at an hour or less. So you're essentially doing hourly matching already. This is how fundamentally power markets work. And so actually making that leap from doing your physical settlement to your green accounting is not necessarily very large. And in fact, you may already be doing all the calculations. It's just a matter of talking about it and communicating in a different way.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. Over to you, Rachel.
Yeah, cheers, JP. And actually, Killian, I will keep with you for this next one, because it is, what are your views on how the lower liquidity of granular certificates can affect market acceptance?
Well, I think, it will, there's been some analysis done by Aurora on this. Some of that is public, obviously, a lot of that is for paying clients as well, but they've shown that actually, one of the issues, I think, with today's monthly or annual certificates is excessive liquidity, leading to very low prices, and so insufficient in many cases actual signals for renewable investment, because there's just too much supply. You can buy a Norwegian certificate in Spain or a certificate produced 6 months ago to claim it now. So I think there is a need over time to make the signals like the folks in LevelTen are doing, to make those signals more granular, more time-based, so that we get more meaningful signals for clean energy that will probably be cheaper, right, during the day when it's very sunny, and should be more expensive at night when there's no sun or wind, sending signals for storage and flexibility, which is what we really need. So I think actually I'd kind of flip that around and say this is absolutely essential for these markets to remain relevant. And low liquidity in certain hours is just better representing the reality of clean energy availability.
And I would just like to add very, very quickly that this is not an abstract concept. Today, guarantees of origin differ in price depending on where you're sourcing them. Dutch wind does not cost the same as Norwegian hydro. This is because you're pricing location and you're pricing scarcity. So it's another level of what is already happening.
Yeah, thank you both. Really good points. And I'll hand back over to you, JP, for I think we'll squeeze in one more question.
Okay, let's squeeze in one more question. This is for you, Katie, but again, it'll be super interested to hear everyone's opinion on this. Given the structure of both forward and spot markets for GCs or green certificates, is there flexibility for corporates to hedge future consumption by purchasing GCs in the forward market during periods of anticipated lower prices due to seasonal renewable availability? Or are there any restrictions in place that limit this kind of strategic timing?
It's a great question. So I think for sure we're interested in creating options for people to think ahead and try to do some further hedging on managing their portfolio. I will also say from an hourly standpoint that the times that they may be looking for may or may not be lower prices. It remains to be seen, but for sure. And I think stepping back too, this is part of, I think, a suite of options for corporates. Granular certificate trading may be one piece of it, but we fully expect people to continue to do long-term power purchase agreements. We've heard of interest in engaging with utilities on solutions. So I think just a reminder for everybody that this is, I think, a really exciting time. And JP, as your organization knows as well, an exciting time of a lot of new solutions that are being brought to bear for customers.
Super. Anyone else would like to contribute? Okay, amazing. Over to you, Rachel.
And cheers, JP. And actually one more has come in, which we'll just get in there because it is such a good one. And that is, again, open to all. Is 24/7 as important and achievable for mid-energy users as it is for heavy energy users? Does the purchase of EACs to achieve 24/7 to make up for times when consumption is not matching production actually contributing to grid decarbonisation? So is it important and achievable for mid-energy users as well? Perhaps Simone, if I come to you first.
Yeah, Killian also has a I think great answer to this. But in general, I think we should look at the materiality of the impact. So it's definitely more important on large consumers because most likely they make 50, 60, 70% of the total volumes reported to CDP. I don't have the exact data. So it's definitely important that they do it. They have more means, they have more impact. And so I think it's all fair that they also take the leading position. At the same time, as I was saying before, there are already suppliers like Good Energy that have a 24/7 proposition for the mid-market. It's just, I think we cannot expect that they will be maybe trading directly on LevelTen's marketplace. They will have most likely need some kind of more off-the-shelf solution because they don't have the resources to do like very proper and sophisticated management. But apart from that, the supplier has all the means. They should know how to deal with power markets. It shouldn't be that difficult to manage an hourly tariff. And as long as we don't require everybody to be 100% meshed every hour. So I think it's for both, but definitely it is to be expected for large organizations to take the lead, I would say.
Brilliant, thank you. And Killian, was there anything you wanted to add on that?
Perfectly answered by Simone.
Brilliant. Any of our other panelists want to come in?
Yeah, maybe I suppose as a AstraZeneca, we're probably a medium energy user ourselves, so we've seen the kind of the opportunity in terms of a sustainability opportunity, but I'd say it's also there's probably an air of inevitability about granular certificates coming in. I think we're seeing it in markets that are experiencing demand from new, the energy demand for AI and things like that, and new demands like hydrogen from electrolyzers. It's becoming a compliance issue to access subsidies there. So I think there's inevitability of granular certificates coming in for all major users and maybe medium users as well. So it feels like if you're a growing company, it's something you need to be kind of aware of and getting your head around.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you all. I know we've just gone over the hour, so we will wrap it up there. Been so many excellent questions, and what I've really been kind of loving is the theme throughout all of what our speakers have been saying and in the questions, that there's this real focus on what we can do today, which has been amazing to see. But unfortunately, we have reached the end of the time for this session. But the good news is that there is a next webinar that will be all about asking questions, because it is the Ask the Expert session. So please do sign up for that if you are not already, and bring along your questions. And next slide, please. And so just a final reminder that you can also sign up to the 24/7 Carbon Free Coalition's newsletter, and continue to join us in the conversation around this online with hashtag 24/7 Coalition. So all that leaves for me to do is thank all of our speakers and panelists today, and to all of you for attending. Hope to see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
all.